The national spotlight is on ICE and immigration enforcement, but many Black Americans feel detached from this debate. Why do you think some see it as not our fight?
There's a sense of alienation because, historically, when Black Americans faced injustice, immigrant groups often remained silent or distant. This lack of reciprocity leads many to adopt a let them handle it stance.
So, is this distancing purely based on past experiences, or are there broader cultural factors at play?
Both, actually. Not only do past interactions matter, but also perceptions that some immigrants openly criticize Black Americans, reinforcing a divide. These compounded slights foster a sense of justified detachment.
Let's transition to the stereotypes that circulate between communities. Many Black Americans recall being called lazy or unmotivated by immigrant counterparts. How widespread are these narratives?
They're quite prevalent, especially online. For example, a Pew study noted that 41% of Black Americans have heard negative remarks from immigrant colleagues. These stereotypes perpetuate misunderstanding and mistrust.
And yet, some immigrants feel they're contributing positively, even claiming to build America. What's the root of this disconnect?
It's partly due to economic competition, but also a lack of recognition for Black Americans' historic struggles. When immigrants overlook contributions like the civil rights movement, resentment grows.
Moving forward, there's a belief among some that immigrants are here primarily to benefit from American resources without embracing the nation. Can you elaborate on the origins of this sentiment?
This perception stems from visible behaviors, like waving foreign flags at protests or expressing little allegiance to the U.S. Such acts are interpreted as opportunistic, fueling the notion that some are here to take, not contribute.
But is it fair to generalize based on these actions? Could there be deeper motivations behind them?
Absolutely, it's an overgeneralization. Many immigrants are deeply invested in their new home, but maintain cultural ties as a form of identity preservation, not disrespect. It's vital to distinguish between cultural pride and lack of loyalty.
This brings us to the optics of waving foreign flags during demonstrations. Why does this gesture provoke such strong reactions among native-born Americans, particularly in the Black community?
It's seen as a rejection of integration. Sociologists argue that flag-waving signals allegiance. When immigrants display their home country's flag, it appears they're not fully committed to becoming American, which can feel exclusionary.
Could this be compared to Americans abroad? If we moved overseas, would it be appropriate to constantly fly the U.S. flag?
That's a useful analogy. Most would expect newcomers to adopt the host country's symbols out of respect. Doing otherwise can hinder social acceptance and foster division, as we've seen in various multicultural societies.
Let's shift gears to labor dynamics. A common claim is that immigrants do jobs nobody else would do. Is this accurate, or is pay the real issue?
It's more about wages than the work itself. Economists like David Card have shown that when pay increases, the native workforce fills these roles. It's not that Americans won't do the work, it's that fair compensation matters.
How does this affect Black workers specifically?
Black Americans have historically been displaced in sectors like construction and agriculture when employers opt for cheaper immigrant labor. This creates tension, especially when economic opportunities are already scarce.
You mentioned earlier that Black Americans fought for freedoms that benefit all. How do these historical achievements intersect with present-day immigration debates?
Civil rights victories laid the groundwork for modern immigration policy. The 1965 Immigration Act, for instance, was only possible because the civil rights movement dismantled exclusionary laws. Yet, some immigrants overlook this debt.
Do you think more awareness of this interdependence would reduce animosity?
Certainly. Recognizing shared struggles and contributions could foster solidarity. Education about these connections might help bridge divides and correct misconceptions on both sides.
Let's explore the hypothetical. If Black Americans and immigrant communities unified, how might that reshape American society?
Collective action could wield significant political and economic power. A 2019 Brookings report found that coalitions between marginalized groups often achieve policy gains like improved wages and anti-discrimination laws.
What holds these alliances back in reality?
Mistrust, competition for limited resources, and the legacy of divide and conquer tactics. When groups see each other as rivals instead of allies, opportunities for mutual progress are squandered.
Another aspect is the persistence of anti-Black racism and colorism within immigrant communities. How does this play out in workplaces and neighborhoods?
Sadly, these biases often manifest in hiring practices, social exclusion, or aligning with white Americans against Black colleagues. Studies in sociology highlight how internalized prejudices are imported and perpetuated across generations.
Has there been progress in addressing these biases?
Some, thanks to diversity and inclusion initiatives. However, real change requires honest conversations about history, privilege, and coalition building, something we're starting to see in younger generations.
Given these complicated histories, some Black Americans express a lack of sympathy for immigrant struggles with ICE. Is this a form of justified self-preservation, or does it risk perpetuating division?
It's a complex mix. On one hand, it's a survival tactic, after years of reciprocity being denied. On the other, withholding empathy can prevent healing. Sociologists warn that mutual indifference can be weaponized by those in power to maintain the status quo.
So, where's the balance between self-care and solidarity?
Balance comes from boundaries, offering support without self-sacrifice and demanding respect in return. Only then can authentic alliances form.
As we wrap up, what practical steps can both communities take to move from estrangement to partnership?
First, intentional dialogue, creating spaces for honest exchange. Second, joint advocacy on issues like fair wages and policing. Third, education about each group's history and contributions to American society.
Are there examples where this approach has worked?
Certainly. In cities like Chicago, Black and immigrant-led coalitions have successfully lobbied for worker protections and community programs. These models prove unity is possible when built on respect and shared interests.